2019. The idea today is to start from where we left it yesterday. But before that, we want to remind you that please try to mute your microphones if you are not willing to speak up, so we can make the whole session a bit, it can run very smoothly in that way. And do not forget to address your questions or comments to all panelists. So not only myself, but Brian, but Casemiro, and some other colleagues in Valencia, the BI developers, can take a look at those comments, and we can all, as a team, let's say, can give you answer to those queries. So without further ado, the idea today is to start with a couple of polling questions. Polling questions related to, I think, one of the reports that we saw the other day. Yesterday, I think it's report number 19 or 10, excuse me, if I'm not mistaken. And then another question retrieving just a little bit the concept of reporting entity. So, Brian, if everything is okay, I will kindly ask you to please launch those two polling questions, so we can start, let's say, from review point of view from yesterday's session.
Sure thing, Daniel. I'll add it now. Just a reminder, that yellow cube you have in the middle of the screen, yeah, if you could take that one. There you go. Thank you. And also, which one would you like me to launch first?
I think the one related to the reporting entity.
Okay. All right, so then you'll just have to make me then quickly the presenter. You'll just have to change the role and make me the presenter, and I can launch it.
It's there, I think.
All right, thank you. Let me just change the timing to 1 minute 30 seconds, so we don't have to spend 5 minutes on it. And I'm launching it now. Okay, so you should all have on your screens the WebEx requesting to access your computer. Sorry? I'm not sure if somebody spoke up. Is there a question?
I think it's Drayton or Drayton from Yannick. I think it's speaking. Oh, here we go. I think he muted. Thanks.
Okay. All right, let me just mute all, just in case. Okay. So guys, remember, if you wish to speak up, the best way would be to click on the icon that looks like a hand next to the green check mark. That'll let us know you want to speak up. We can unmute you. And also you can address your question through the chat. Okay, right now what we're doing is the polling on the sort of a refresher on what the reporting entity stood for, or mainly just to check and see if you guys remember what it doesn't stand for and what it does. Quickly, we saw yesterday Daniel was explaining what an important concept that was, as that now is quite critical when pulling reports and getting the correct data information, basically between the reporting entity and the business area, and what were the similarities and differences between the two. Okay, so the polling is done. And so Daniel wants another 15 seconds, and I'll give you back the presenter role.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I can also, for those of you who have taken the polling now, I'm showing the correct answers. So hopefully everyone answered false for the question that you had in the polling, which was the field for reporting entity is always required in prompts, in report prompts, and that is not true. Remember, that is not the case. The majority of the times it's optional, if not always. So that's our first question for the polling. And then Daniel, if you want to go on, I can make you a presenter.
Yes, please.
All right. Sorry.
Here we go. I think now I'm getting back to the presenter role. So important, the concept of reporting entity. We can address that offline if you want to get further information, and the derivation rule on how the system identifies the reporting entity. We'll show you at the very end of these sessions. So the derivation rule that the system understands in order to select one or the other. But important to understand that it's not a mandatory field. It's only a optional field, but it's an important field in case that you do want to report based on all the business areas that fall under your own reporting entity, because you want to, or because you just want to do a bit of cleanup in case that there are some equipments or even fixed assets that are under your reporting entity that shouldn't be there. Okay, so having said that, let's start with the session 2. What we are going to do basically, it's we're going to tell you that report number 10 was done yesterday, along with report number 19 or KPI number 19 and number 9 as well. Today, the idea is to go through report or KPI number 20, which is a set of reports for inventory management. And then after that, we'll go through the analysis workspaces for inventory. After that, the idea is to leave these two reports, 21 and the AWS for equipment for tomorrow. And we shall start with the reporting 1 to 7 on physical verification as well. Because we had a pretty good idea after the KPI 11 and 20 on how inventory management works. Then this is a priority number 1 for New York and for the different reports and PIDO. Important, I think, it's to address the physical verification reports. So that's something that Brian will start today. And then tomorrow, when he finishes, then we will touch base on the equipment and report number 21, and then we will follow on with the rest of the sessions. So in terms of reporting inventory, yesterday we just gave you a bit of a small, let's say, hint of how the different reports for inventory are available in this release in production for BI. We do have the Web Intelligence report, this one, which is report 20 total inventory value. That will cover the value of fixed assets, breaking down into different categories of fixed assets, which are real estate equipment, assets under construction, and intangible assets. Then the same report will have information in terms of inventory, operational inventory, not related to fixed assets, which are the value of SDS and even reserve it for storage locations or plants related to those two concepts, which is basically in Brindisi, and then rations and bottled water as well. I think there is some echo I'm hearing to myself. I don't know if all the participants are muted. Let me just take a look at it. Okay. Yes, I think someone was not muted. So the second report, which is an analysis workspace, is called Total Inventory Value. Will address the same concepts, but only related to the operational inventory, and the fixed asset will not be there. Okay, so basically it's a replication of this report, but only for the inventory that is not covering fixed assets. A third report, another analysis workspace, will be focusing in this time on fixed assets by asset classes, real estate, equipment, the same thing that we saw in the initial report on WebE, but in this case we will be able to really deep or drill down to the specifics of each of the assets and even the storage locations as well. And then the last but not least, this analysis workspace that has been customized by RDM, the RDM team in Valencia. So you can do an analysis of the stock type, by the status of that stock, whether it's unrestricted, restricted stock, transit, blocked, returned, in quality, unit price, etc. And then you can do an analysis by material or by material group. So this is a kind of like a holistic view of the list of options in terms of reporting inventory. Obviously, you have more, but it's important to, let's say, as you do have several reports with the same number, it's important for you to have a clarity on which report will fit your needs once you start to use BI. So let's start with the first one, the Web Intelligence report. It's report number 20, total inventory value report. The key action is to ensure accuracy in value of the equipment and assets, meaning that in the same report, we will have information. You see, this is the prompt. You have information from the FI model. And every time we're talking in terms of reporting on Umoja, FI model and business area are two concepts that are going together. Because the business area, it's a master data concept from the FI model. But you have another concept in the prompt, which is the plant, and plant, it's related to the inventory management model in SAP. So this is a quite interesting report, this Web Intelligence report on total inventory value, because it addresses, let's say, targets two sets of data coming from different modules in Umoja. They're the ones related to the assets, FI, business area, and the ones related to the rest of the equipment and material from the inventory management module in Umoja. So it's a bit tricky in a way that the plant, as you can see, it's compulsory in the prompt because you have an asterisk here, but the business area is not. So that's something that if you leave this business area without any item in the prompt, then down the road you will see information from all the business areas in Umoja. That is not a bad thing, but it's just a piece of information for you in case when you just run the report and you see a list of business areas, that will mean that indeed you have not selected the business area, the same business area related to the plant itself. But we will run the report together and we'll see how it looks. So the business need embedded within this report is to analyze the inventory of the SDS, strategic deployment of stocks, the human reserve IPSs, water rations, and then calculating the value in transit and virtual stock under the final storage location destination. Still, we do have information from the FI model and the fixed assets as well. But if I'm not mistaken, that's something that it's been discussed, or at least in the pipeline with the finance unit in New York, because this report may be subject to be modified just a little bit, because as you can see in the screenshot here, it covers two universes of data related to different modules in SAP. So that's something that has to be, let's say, agreed as well with the finance guys in New York. So this report will measure the value of USD of the inventory, obviously, and the unit of measure, its local currency in Moya. So first thing when you run the report, and we'll do that afterwards together. First thing when you run the report, you'll see two sets of data. The first four lines are fixed assets from different categories of assets: real estate, assets under construction, equipment, and intangible assets. And we have a net book value in US dollars and an historical cost in US dollar, which is basically the capitalization, the APC value, capitalized value of the asset, right? So that it's something that comes from, let's say, the business area that you have selected initially in the prompt. So this is finance data. And then from this line down, the information will be related to the inventory, operational inventory in Moja related to the plant that we saw before. So it's broken down in the first tab of the report into two pieces of information. So it's kind of a good thing that in just one snapshot, you do see the inventory value from the finance point of view related to fixed assets and the inventory, operational inventory from the inventory management point of view, and a total of the two items. As I said before, the first tab of the report, it's called total inventory value report, and this is the table of content that you will see. Then obviously you can use the filter, and you can select a particular asset number, material type as well, storage location, or even the business area, a particular business area for all this data. So please, we do invite you to use the filter in case that you want to just drill down just a little bit the information that it's prompted after you have launched the report. And this is applicable for all web intelligence reports in property management and other reports in BI as well. The filter, it's always, an ally for you to drill down just a little bit. I mean, it's not like something, the stuff that you can do in the AWS type of reports when you can drag and drop and really see the information in a very granular way, right? The granularity is extreme, right, in the AWS, but you can still drill down and just filter your information using the filter bar in the web intelligence reports. So the second tab will be financial assets, and this is what I was talking with the business area, because I did not select any business area in the initial prompt. The system understands that I want to see all the business areas in the system, and this is information related only to fixed assets by category for all the business areas. So imagine that, let me go back to the system, let's say, and we can see, let me see if I can log in again. Okay, so we can see that together. So I'm going to launch the same report as we basically the dynamics this week is going to be going back and forth from the PPT to the system. So it's report number 20, web intelligence report. Double click, and there we will go through the prompt, so you'll see the difference, the different concepts involved. You see the 3 different tabs. You see that you have the fiscal year period. This is a selection criteria that is applied to the info from the fixed asset captured in the report. Let's say that I'm going to refresh. I'm going to select April 2018, for example, because in regression I think we have or February 2018, which is here we go. I select that, and then as an end date I'm going to select the same thing. So its start and end value is the same date. This second, it's called select hashtag for posted DEP, keep blank for planned deep. Basically, if you leave this part of the prompt empty, not only the posted depreciation, but also the planned depreciation will be used in the determination of the current book value, okay, of the reporting period. So if you just leave it blank, it will be the planned depreciation and the posted depreciation captured in the report. If you put a hashtag posted only posted values are used. Okay, this will be, we're going to leave it just blank. Business area, as I said before, if you leave it blank, all this data in the fixed assets second tab will be related to all business areas in the system. We will fill it in afterwards. This is the inventory month. This is basically the time in the selection criteria that it's applied for the stock coming from the material management module in Umoja. So let's put it, I think it's, we have to put first a year, 2018, 02, meaning February. And the plant, we can select, let's select a Brindisi. So we see information from the SDS, and then some other mission, ENGSC, I think it's there, IT01. You can scroll to your right and you'll see the description. Okay, so it's a bit tricky sometimes. And then let's take another big mission. like you miss. So we're inputting 2 plants, and then the business area, I'm going to leave it blank, okay? So you see how it works. Obviously, if you really want to know the fixed asset value and the inventory for the operational inventory value in the same report, you will have to put UMIS and Brindisi as a business area. But I'm going to leave it blank because this is not mandatory. Let's see what happens. Stock business area will be used to select the stock valuation belonging to the specific business area. And this is the different. These are the different information that we do have in the prompt. So let's click in OK. Obviously, if and as the report is being launched, if you know just a little bit about fixed assets, you know that there are different categories in terms of superclass of the asset. So all the superclasses related to real estate are like 9,000, like land, buildings, leasehold, infrastructure. All those things will be for real estate. Fixed assets related for assets under construction will have a specific asset subclass number, which is 9,800. And then fixed assets for equipment are related for furniture, fixtures, vehicles, communications, and IT equipment, machinery and equipment as well. And then intangible assets is the superclass 9,900, which is intangible assets. So within these 4 lines, you do have basically a breakdown of different asset superclasses in the ECC part, with a net book value and the historical cost, which is the acquisition and plant value of the asset. So I have a number here as a net book value for all the inventory related to the assets as well. And then on the second part, below part here, I have information on the SDS, UN reserve, and missions. And makes sense that I have no information as a net book value because all this inventory is not going to be depreciated, right? So I have a total of the 2. Obviously, as we said before, the filter bar will be an ally for you to, well, filter by different other categories. We will not go that far now, but that's there for you to be used. Look, if I go to the second tab, the financial assets, and I didn't put anything in the prompt, and I'm going to launch the prompt again. You see business area, it's blanked, it's nothing. So all the business areas are going to be launched in terms of information for fixed assets by asset superclass. If I only put the 2 business areas related to the plant, UMIS, in this case UMIS and Brindisi, I will have only 2 lines here. Okay, so you didn't do anything wrong. All of a sudden, in the second tab, you see all these business areas. It's the only reason behind it is just you didn't input anything in the prompt. In the third tab, you have the inventory, equipment, and materials. So basically, you have in the second tab the fixed assets. In the third tab, you have information now by plant, because this is the material management module, inventory management module, by reporting entity, UMIS. And then UN reserve, IPSES, and strategic deployment of stocks, the total value for each one of them. And then at the end, the rations and bottled water, in this case for UMIS. So it looks like a simple report, this total inventory value report, but it has quite a large amount of information, and we believe it's important for you to understand what's in the prompt, so you have a good idea of what to select before clicking OK, because otherwise you might find lots of information that initially wouldn't make sense. So that's why we spent just a little more time on this report and the prompt. I hope you liked it. It's a very complete report, even though it's a web intelligence report. So let me go back to the presentation. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Okay. So in the presentation, you do see the same screenshots that we saw in the demo with information about what's showing, right? This the third tab shows details about the inventory group by business area and reporting entity. This is the reporting entity. This is the business area. Okay. Brian, do we have any question before we move on to the next inventory report? Over to you.
Hi, Daniel. Actually, we did have one before about the report number 20, if it was in production yet or not, but that was already answered through the chat. So eventually, I'm just using this time to remind the attendees that not all the reports that you're showing are in production. The majority are, but some of them are still, the way you're showing them is still pre-production, just a reminder, because a lot of them want to go and navigate at the same time that you're doing so, and then realize that they can't access the report and are wondering why.
Okay, yes, makes sense. Okay, with the exercises that you are meant, thank you, Brian. The exercises that you are meant to send back to us, obviously, are full reports coming from production. So don't worry about that, and it will be just a matter of days for you to have the full scope and picture of all these property management reports in production. So let's move on to the second report in inventory. This one is an analysis workspace. So it's basically what we did see in the previous report, but in an analysis workspace. So the same business need, the same action owner, or the measurements will be pretty much the same, but you will have, you see in the screenshots, another, let's say, pitch of work to work your data out, which is in the left panel, different measures related to the SDS, whether they are in physical or in transit, or they are in virtual goods received. UN reserve, here you can see the SDS as measures. You can see the UN reserve in physical, in transit, or virtual. These are different status that we can see, that we can have from the inventory point of view. And then we have information on the rations and water, and then the total value. So these different boxes, colored boxes, are identifying what I've just talked about, right? So SDS, UN reserve, rations and water, and a total. Well, why I do not see any information here in the report? Okay, basically because these missions, this reporting entity that I created, that I, let's say, created the report upon, which are MINUSCO, MINUSMA, MINUSCA, MINURSO, MINUSTAT, do not have an inventory in this regard from this category, but they do have inventory for rations and water. Okay, so the idea is not to really go very far with this report, because pretty much is a replication in terms of data of the other, not taking into account the part of fixed assets. Obviously, this is only for IPSAS, SDS, UN reserve, rations, and bottle of water, because the fixed asset part in terms of data and analysis workspace will be the following report. So basically, let's get back to the first point. We have a web intelligence report that will give you fixed asset data, inventory, operational inventory data, all mixed in 3 different tabs. Then we have a replication of the operational inventory, this one, into an analysis workspace. And then I have the same report, an analysis workspace, but only for assets. Okay. And let me go back to the previous slides. We created this exercise for you. We will not go for the sake of time, because it's taking time, and most of some of these reports are not yet in production. So we'll leave it for you to just do it yourself as a, let's say, learning material. You don't have to do it. It's not mandatory to do this exercise. This scenario is only for you to play around with the data initially, right? But this exercise is related to a scenario of the report number 20 on total value of inventory with the solution. So you have screenshots there with solutions of the exercise as well. And then we have the second analysis workspace on inventory, only devoted to fixed assets. So as a business need is to analyze the value of assets, calculating the value in transit and virtual stock under the final storage location destination. So as you can see in the screenshot, it's another analysis workspace, but with information on the different categories of assets. As I said before, real estate, equipment, assets under construction, and intangible assets. You do have in the same prompt. In the prompt, you have this hashtag to identify whether you want this asset information on this asset on planned depreciation and current depreciation. So you can select that. But most importantly, the measurements that you can find, which are here in this box, and here on this part, right, are related to the all the variants that we have in stock for each material with the value: unrestricted stock, transit stock, quality stock, restricted, blocked, return stock, and total stock as well. And in terms of characteristics for the fixed assets, we have a lot of information in terms of all the materials, all the drill down that you can do down the road. As I said, it's not mandatory for you to do the exercise that you see, but it will be a good thing to do if you want to, let's say, widen your knowledge just a little bit in terms of fixed assets and inventory as well. Okay,
sorry,
so,
Daniel.
Yes, Brian.
Just quickly, sorry to interrupt. I don't know if you're still connected in pre-production, and you could maybe double-click on one of those key figures. I know Cass is asking in the chat if probably we could show how to filter those measures out, even if it's just quickly, one quick look at it.
Yeah, the idea is that those SDS and UN reserve columns are may not be interesting to missions, so they should know that they can remove them. Simple as that.
Yes. So this total inventory value. Yeah, I think like sometimes it takes a bit of time. So, but let's try. Just try a little bit. So this is the initial prompt. Let's put all the required fields. So here, let's put 2018-02 plant. Yeah, we can just take actually, we can just remind you guys how to find a particular master data element here in the binoculars. Important, this small arrow here. If you click on the arrow, you can look for the master data element as a key or as a text. So if I put as a text and then I put, excuse me, it's a bit UNAMI, for example, and I click on the binoculars, the system will retrieve UNAMI and UNAMIT because UNAMI it's a concept that is within the two words. So let's take, for example, UNAMIT. It's a plant. So we have the inventory month and the year, the plant as well, and we click in OK. So yes, all the measures in any type of report can be taken out by, in this case we have here like 7 or 8, but if you only want to come up with a specific, you just either right click in the measures, filter by member, and then you select, you untick everything and then you select only the ones that you want to use. For example, rations and bottle of water and value, and then you leave the UN reserve IPSES and the strategic deployment of stocks, which actually do not apply to this mission. You leave them out. So you click in OK, and then you will have information only related to the inventory that you are controlling, in this case, UNAMIT. I think, Cass, is this what you were looking for? Just double checking.
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, thank you, Cass. So good to know that this report is behaving well and fast, even in regression. So let me go back to the presentation as well. So pretty much you can do the same thing with all these measurements in the fixed asset analysis workspace. So as a recap, because we went, let's say, through all these 3 reports. These ones are here, and now we will go, excuse me, sorry for that, to this one, this analysis workspace, but we went through these first 3. But remember that we have an analysis workspace here that the RDMN team created only to analyze your stock by stock type. We will do that a little bit later. So I think that we have a polling question there, just to double check that the concept is acknowledged, let's say. So if Brian, you want to launch the polling question related to this report number 20, please.
Yep, sure thing. Just change the role to presenter, and I can just do that really quick. And I'll take this time also to remind some of the attendees that
Sure.
Some of them are asking some questions related to what was taught in the first GDP. Hold on. Okay, and yeah, I would just recommend that in the kickoff ETC we shared a PPT with the attendees that were invited to the session, just because we won't be able to cover everything we covered in the first GDP BI session and what we're covering now at the same time. So all these basics in terms of navigation, filtering, drag and drop, these things are covered extensively in the links that we shared in the PPT actually for the kickoff. So I would recommend taking a look at those links and going through all the videos just to review the basics, okay? Because we may not have time to go through all of them during these sessions, as there's a lot of reports to cover. Just a quick reminder on that. So I'm going to launch that polling for you, Daniel. Hold on. I'm just getting to it. Okay, so this is the one for reporting inventory values.
Yes.
Okay. And let me just make sure it's still just 1 minute and 30 seconds. All right, and now the poll is open. So hopefully that works correctly. If you guys can see it on your screen, you should be able to accept it now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Obviously, the question is more related to what we have just went through. We went through the different reports from total inventory. That doesn't mean that those are the unique reports in terms of inventory, but it's more related to report number 20. So we understand, especially because we did have a bit of a problem to understand initially with all these reports with the same name. So that's why we wanted to reinforce the idea of for you to understand the numbering and the number of reports and type of reports that we have in for total inventory.
All right, so I think the polling has just closed. And I'll make sure I just share the answers with everyone. Just give me another 10 seconds.
Sure.
Okay, so just very quickly, going over the question once again for inventory values, how many reports can you find in BI? So the correct answer was the last one, 4. Right, just as a reminder for everyone, we're going to keep using these polling questions very quickly, just 1 minute and 30 seconds, just as a refresher and to make sure that you guys are still awake and listening to us on the other side. So I'll give the presenter role back to you, Daniel.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Okay, when I was going through the, let me see the, let's see, I was going again into the Umoja job aids page, and here what you can find now is in terms of report number 20, you can find here the analysis workspace for fixed assets. That's here, report number 20, and then in terms of analysis workspace for inventory is the second one, inventory analysis workspace. The other two job aids are still pending, but I'm sure will be published in due time. I'm going to open the job aid only for the analysis of the inventory, because this is a quite a very comprehensive report. This is let's say the fourth report that we are going to cover. So meaning this one. Okay, so indeed there are 4 reports related to a total inventory, the ones that we went through, the WebEx and the 3 analysis workspaces. This one is not related to a KPI itself, but it's a bulk of data from the point of view and the information that you can do as an analysis. Excuse me, the analysis you can do. It's related to the stock type. So it's quite interesting. I opened up the job aid. As you can see that only not BI basic user, but as an analytical user or power user are the roles needed to see or launch this report. And the job aid, you can see where it's located, and most importantly, how the prompt behaves and all the different fields that have to be filled in. Plenty of them actually. Now let me just take a look here. Okay, so let me go down so you see overview report. Here we go, the measures, what I was talking before in terms of measure. Let me just put it bigger. The measures, which are the numbers, this part in the left panel, and the numbers in these columns are measures in BI. So basically this report is showing the stock in all its variants for each material together with the value. So we have information of our inventory that is in the unrestricted stock in terms of quantity and in terms of value. The same for the stock that is in transit with value, the stock that is in quality and value, the one restricted and with its value, locked stock in terms of quantity and the value, the one returned in stock and in value, a total stock, a total value, and final unit price. By default, this is the only measure that is not shown in the report, meaning that you will have to filter and put it in once you have launched the report. In terms of characteristics, which are the objects that you can find in the report, and I can show to you. Let me see what it is. Here, the bluish icon here, if you know how it works, and hopefully you know how an AWS report works, are the characteristics or the objects that you can drag and drop are the ones in the blue, this blue icon. So here in the job page, you have a list of all the different characteristics that you can find. In terms of material, look from asset class to base of unit, material type, material group, the GL account for the material volume and unit, last stock date. This is the last date with the stock information and material. But besides all this granularity in terms of material, you have information obviously on business area, plant center, plant, serialization profile, storage location. Obviously, if you have a stock in transit, the storage location shown will be 999. Storage location destination, the type, the valuation type related to the material stock, the class. Then indeed you do have information on how the reporting entity concept works, and this is actually that it's something that is done throughout all the job aids, if I'm not mistaken. So besides the information that we have given to you yesterday, in the job aids you have a description of how it works and even the derivation rule used by the system in order to identify the reporting entity. We'll go through this table at the end of the session on Friday. And then how the different features and the measures that you can find in the report. And finally, the scope determination, that it's something important. These are the boundaries of data. This analysis workspace is modeled through the T-code MB52, our famous T-code in ECC for inventory. The only condition that can be applied in the scope of the report is determined by the parameter show materials with no stock, meaning that in the prompt initially, and we can just launch at the same time. Let me go back to the system. And let me go in documents. I think it's one of the ones at top. This analysis workspace, we have the equipment in transit. This is the third one, analysis workspace for inventory. A double click. So this is what the job aid is asking. I'm going back. It's within the scope determination, the only parameter that it's determined by the only condition that is determined by a parameter is the show materials with no stock, meaning that if you put here no instead of yes, the report will not show you materials with no stock. If you put here a yes, the report will be bigger and will show you the materials with no stock. So then the stock value measures the unit price, and the unit price are calculated based on plant and valuation type, and not at the storage location level. In case of showing this value, we recommend doing it at the most granular level to avoid duplications. So please take a look at the scope determination, not only for this job aid, but for all of them, because as Cass said yesterday, this will be an important feature, an important piece of information in terms of how the BA reports behaves, on what the boundaries and the conditions of this report in terms of data work. So
hi, Daniel.
Yes.
Sorry, just a quick interruption. We have a question from Maria asking if it's possible to add coding block information to analysis workspace if needed. Now, if I understand correctly, we could always have her speak up a coding block information. I guess it's details related to a coding block, for example, a fund center, a cost center. I believe that's what Maria is asking, if you could just confirm that. And at the same time, I believe somebody has raised their hand in the, one attendee has raised their hand as well, but I'm not sure they can speak up. Ruslan, I don't think you even have a headset or microphone to speak up, so if you want to ask a question, you should do it through the chat instead. Okay, Daniel. All right, so yes, Maria has confirmed that's what it was. So yes, Maria, definitely you can, especially in an AWS report. There's always to the left, as Daniel was showing, and I believe now once he finishes, if he's actually going to finish the prompt information he's adding now and click on OK, you should see the list on the left. You'll see the measures, and below that other details and information that you can drag and drop. See right here with the what looks like blue folders with plus signs to the left of them. All these is where you can find, you see, like Daniel is showing you, the plant and other type of information related to coding block. You can always just click on the plus sign here next to one of these folders, and it'll show you the hierarchical view of what is there, and you can just drag and drop what you need into the actual report to view it.
Okay.
Okay, so once again, those, and I'll take a chance to repeat this again. We highly recommend that you watch that all of the attendees watch the videos that we recorded for the first GDPBI session. So all these things are covered there in detail. All right, Daniel, so back to you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you. Yes, well, the initial prompt, it's always, we always remember, Brian, that what we said in the Reporting Academy is the prompt itself, it's like the T-code in ECC, meaning that it's the first entry point where you fill in some fields, some data fields. From there, you will get information, a T-code related to reporting always. You will get a report in ECC, and from there you can filter, you can modify the layout, And this is the information that you may get once the report is launched. So the report here with no data, and let me just take a look at why. But yes, Maria, what you can do, as Brian was saying, is just modify in terms of master data elements the report when you just drag and drop the objects from the left panel to the right panel.
And Daniel, you'll be better off, according to the RDM team, selecting years between 2017 2018.
Yes, because I'm so far away from the screen. I think I put 2015.
2015, yes.
Yeah, that's the reason why. Thank you, guys. Exactly. Obviously, in production, you can just put the date you want, and you will retrieve the data from that particular date. So as I was saying, the prompt behaves, the initial prompt like the T code, and then once you see the data in ECC, the list of records, then you can modify that report. So this is the stage, right? Thank you, Brian. So this is the report that you can find as an analysis workspace, and from there we can modify the initial data by dragging and dropping different objects from the left panel to the right box. As you can see, it's already this report predetermined or designed with a large amount of data. In terms of measures, you have everything, almost all the different measures already on the report, but most importantly, it's prompted already with the reporting entity, with the plant, with the business area, storage location, the storage location destination, material group description, and the material. So all those master data elements are here, and then the measures, the numbers, are on the right side. Scroll to my right. So you have information by the different type of stock, whether it's restricted, unrestricted, in quality, blocked, by material and group description. Obviously, if you do not want to use any of these items, you can just take them out and use some others that you have here on the panel. Questions that I think was yesterday, I saw in the Q&A. Obviously, you cannot make up or, let's say, create another object in this analysis workspace. For example, if you don't see, I'm just making something up here, some types of valuation or in terms of quality of the stock on the left panel, you cannot create the object, put it here, and then use it in the report. These are already predetermined cubes of data, let's say, and if you do need, or you have a feeling that you need more objects or more information in a particular report, you should create a ticket and ask our colleagues in BI as well, and Cass and his team in Kirill in New York, because this is already, let's say, already designed information coming from the technical point of view, but from the business point of view as well. So all these reports, in a way or another, should meet your expectations in terms of reporting KPIs. So that's how the report looks like. It's very, very comprehensive and has a lot of information. Okay. For the sake of time, what I did is, let me go back. Is it this one? No, sorry. I did put an exercise and then for you to do. Not now, but this scenario, please take a look at it today or tomorrow, and if you have any question or anything that it doesn't work or is not clear, just get back to us. But basically what we're going to do is to launch this report for Unami, see the different stock in different statuses from a restricted to return, and then have an analysis of this stock by fund center, and then by material group description. And from there, we're going to ask you which is the group with highest value in blocked status. In case that you want to wonder why we have such a big amount in blocked status and you want to identify the fund center related, there are several actions that you have to do in the report in order to come up with the answer, which actually in terms of screenshots are there, right? So here you have a hint or the different objects that you can drag and drop in order to come up with the final solution. Okay, that's because we have to really show in 5 days 42 different reports. We cannot do a demo for every single one. So if you think it's okay, Brian, I think that maybe it will be a good time to do a break before we move on to report number 11, which might be the last one that I'm going to do today, and then I pass the ball to you, and you may start with the physical verification type of reports. Is that okay?
Yes, sure thing. So we'll take a 5-minute break or 10 minutes?
I think a 5-6 minutes break.
Okay.
Yes.
Let's do 6.5.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to put the countdown now, and then let's see. It's going to be 5 or 6. Let me see.
All right.
All right. Okay, 5. That was already stopped. So we'll see you in 5 minutes with the last report for inventory management before we move on to the physical verification reports. Thank you. Okay. Let me see. Brian, do you hear me well?
Yes, Daniel.
Thank
All
you.
fine.
Thanks. So let me close this part. So before we move on to the physical verification reports from 1 to 7, let's take a look at this report number 11, which is the equipment utilization time frame. If I'm not mistaken, this was already designed report in a previous version, and I remember that it had some graphs on it. It was a Webby as well. It's been redefined, redesigned just a little bit, and you'll see that we have plenty of information in terms of how our equipment in the mission is being used by our different reporting entities. So the business needs, well, the key action in terms of a strategy is to assess efficiency ratios and commodity distribution strategy. But in terms of business needs, it's to improve the utilization of the serialized property items and promote the FIFO model of FIFO commodity distribution strategy, first in, first out. In terms of measurements, this report 11 is going to measure the percentage of total time serialized property items that had been in use during the current reporting cycle, applied to both profiles, UN01 and UN05. The formula applied in order to understand how much time this equipment has been used is the days of utilization and divided by duration in days. And then the unit of measures is the percentage. Commodity owners will be the actions owners, and the KPI is set as 8% with a tolerance rate of 10%. So before I may want to move into the system just a little bit, although we will not perform a demo, but at least you can see how the prompt looks like, which is always a good thing. See, because sometimes I might be locked. Yeah, I might be logged out. See, it doesn't. Okay. Let me see if I'm not. I will have to log in again. So it's report number 11, which is the equipment utilization time frame, current cycle. It's a web intelligence report. Okay. In terms of duration, if you want to set the duration, the number that's going to be in the below part of the calculation will be the date from and day 2. That's the range of duration that you want to analyze. Then business area, always mandatory. Minimum acquisition value 0, meaning that you can put actually there a threshold of the acquisition of the equipment. Usually it's set at 0, so meaning that it will actually retrieve all the equipment because at least it has a value of $1. And then as a mandatory, as a optional field, we have the reporting entity, as we usually do. Okay, I don't know if it's gonna how it's gonna behave. Let me just try. Data range 2000. Let's take a look at. So January. Let me take March 2018, for example. Business area. That's I think evented quarters. Then we can refresh values and we can select several other. Well, here you see that in the right on the right side, on the far right, you have the description of each of the business areas. You can select several of them, and then you can compare the utilization of a particular type of equipment as well between the different entities. I don't know, I'm just taking some of them randomly. The minimum 0, reporting entity we leave it like that, and then we click OK. In the meantime, once the report it's retrieved after the prompt, in this case what I put like almost 3 years, 1st January 2016 to 1st January 2019. As a business area, I put P09, which is UMIL MONUSCO UNLV headquarters, and as a reporting entity, I put UNLV. So, excuse me, I put a reporting entity UNLV and then the business area, these ones in the prompt, and then I saw the total of equipment by each of the business areas and the KPI in terms of percentage of utilization. Well, you can find it's in an initial table with the relationship between the reporting entity and business area and total of equipment and the KPI, total number of equipment and utilization of KPI by reporting entity and business area. And then on another table, you'll see the relation between the business area and the maintenance plant. Again, with the total number of equipment and the KPI percentage by them. So you have like two sides of the same coin, same information. It's a breakdown of the reporting entity business area or a breakdown of the business area and plant. For example, here you can find that we have 5 equipments with 0% utilization in business area MONUSCO, but belonging to reporting entity Brindisi. And the breakdown of those 5, it's the business area MONUSCO P18 with different plants. ES01, IT01, Valencia, or Brindisi, and this one that actually is retrieving no data. So the percentages may be different because we have different breakdown, but you have like 2 ways to see the same information in terms of percentage of equipment utilization. Then if you do select lots of reporting entities and business areas, then you can compare the total number of equipments with different percentages and use the filter in the upper menu as well. Let me see how yes, I knew that it was going to take some time. Our colleagues in RDM told us that usually, as a, let's say, rule of thumb, the web intelligence reports usually take a little bit more time to be launched than the analysis workspaces, as a general rule, we can say. So that's why, especially if you take several business areas, or you really are giving a lot of granularity in terms of the initial prompt, that may take a bit of time. Okay, but that's why we took a screenshot so you see how it works. So I going back to the first slide here. So basically, 2 tables in the same report: initial breakdown, reporting entity and business area with total number of equipments and the KPI, and the other table is business area and plant. So FI with inventory management model, 2 types of master data with the description, and then on the equipment as well. And then if you do it by in comparison of different reporting entities with different business areas, you can just compare the total number of equipments and the KPI utilization as well. So let me see if the prompt works. Yeah, it's gonna take some time, I think. So that's basically report number 11. It's not really complex because it's a web intelligence report, but basically will tell you the utilization of your equipment based on the system and user status that it's changed depending on the different actions that you're taking into your equipment. So please bear in mind that it will be a good friend of you to this report if you want to really track down in terms of utilization, lower rates of utilization. You really want to understand which these 5 are. These 5 equipments. For that, you can always use the filter in the upper menu, filter bar, and then you can identify which is the equipment number. And from there, you can go to ECC IE03 the equipment master record, and from there you can identify what's going on with the equipment or this set of equipments. So Brian, I don't know if we have any question. If we don't, I think it will be good to jump into the physical verification reports.
Sure thing. There was just one question that was answered as well during the chat, through the chat, sorry, which was 0% means equipment was never used. That was for the web intelligence report you were just showing before. And yes, the answer was yes. Okay, so yeah, definitely 0%, and for this Webby means exactly that. So thank you, Daniel. If you want to, yes, we can switch. And as we switch, it may take us like maybe a minute or two to make to go through the switching. If I don't know if maybe Cass wants to come in and introduce these reports for physical verification, maybe for 1 minute or two while we do the switch. I don't know if there's a special interest in maybe mentioning something specific, because Daniel and I may take that 1 or 2 minutes just to switch from one desk to another.
You put me on the spot.
Sorry. Yes.
What can we say?
1, 2, 3, and 4 reports.
For NEP and P&E. I don't know. Is there anything specific that we might want to?
Because if I may use, it's Kirill. Just as a matter of high-level introduction or emphasizing again the issue that last year we got an emphasis of matter on inventory, and with particularly on the physical verification and physical counts. So these BIs are intended, and we expect them to help everyone in the entities, in the missions, and ourselves here in the headquarters to monitor, self-assess, and improve the physical count through targeting the items not counted. So you will see there is Webby, there is analysis workspace to help us improve on the physical verification, and physical verification of P&E, non-capitalized equipment, and also the physical counts of inventory. And the colleagues will guide you through, but there was also a question, how do we look at high value materials? Yes, in the report 4 there is this functionality to filter for high value materials, and which is particularly important for the peacekeeping in the year-end closure now. Over to you, Brian.
Thank you, Kirill, and thank you, Cass. Okay, so that gave us exactly enough time to switch from desk to desk. Thank you for the good introduction, and sorry for putting you on the spot there, Cass. It seems I'm great at doing that. So let's take over from here. Now, after that wonderful introduction, let's see the added value of now taking a look at the actual reports, the prompts, and if you guys are navigating through the reports as we're delivering the WebEx, well, of course, everyone's free to do what they want. I would recommend just paying attention to some of the things we're going to cover here. I also believe that throughout this session, it's very important to go back and forth with the actual job aids. And now that I said job aids, one of the attendees reminded me to send the links for the job aids. And sorry, I think, Daniel, I only sent the one for report 11. So if you could send the links to the reports that you were looking at before 11, the job aid links, it would be very helpful. Because I was asked by one of the attendees that. So thank you.
Sure thing.
All right, so let's go and take a look at, okay, our mind map. We're quite familiar with that now, so I can skip directly into what I want to show now, which is exactly what's on the screen. And I'll also grab my pen. So we're basically going to focus now on report 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 7. Now, they're not all in production, but should be either by today or by the end of the week, let's say, just to keep it safe. But we will be looking at these reports in pre-production. Okay, mainly web intelligence reports and AWS reports, as we have been doing so far, and going back and forth through the job aid so we can understand what is already by default excluded already from the data search, what the prompt offers automatically, and how we understand sometimes what it means to say out of scope. We sometimes see some sentences or objects, sorry, that'll say equipment out of scope, and it just has an X there, and we really don't understand what that means. So I highly recommend taking a look at the job aids before you start navigating with the report, or maybe do it simultaneously. Okay, so the first one is our report 1, and now again, as Daniel was explaining in previous sessions, I'm going to take the laser point here. Remember, at the top, we're talking about web intelligence reports and analysis workspace. And as has happened with other reports we were looking at, we do have the KPIs, business need, and what this report measures, its intention, and so on for the web intelligence. This was taken directly out of the job aids. But know that this report, for example, shares the analysis workspace with report 3. So eventually what we do see in the analysis workspace is not strictly what we see in the web intelligence or what is covered sometimes in the web intelligence report. So once we get to that, we'll see what I mean in detail. So let's focus on this first key action. Okay, we already were familiar with this: to ensure accuracy of Ipsos financial reports and use of Ipsos information, and the business need for this report. So to ensure that the asset reports at the end of the reporting period reflect actual entity holdings. Okay, so that's first of all our business need and how this report is measuring that. So it measures the capitalized value of P&E in the entity physically verified during reporting period. We're going to be seeing that for these reports that we're going to be looking at, they should be okay. Is the screen not being shared? No? Okay. All right. I believe everything should be fine. If by any chance no one is seeing the screen, just let me know. But I think it should be fine. Daniel was just okay. Okay. So back to this. It's also expressed as a percentage of total capitalized value. And the intention basically also taken out from the job aid to support the reporting of the quantity and capitalized value of P&E relevant for physical verification, distinguishing the moment in which the last PV took place, if any. Okay, so the web intelligence report we're going to be taking a look at, the screenshots and the prompt, are basically going to cover these needs, right? And we'll see how it is measured in the web intelligence report. We also see at the bottom the KPI and the target for this KPI, which is set at 100%, and tolerance rate at 0.5. Okay, so let's take a look at this and probably go back to this screen once we look at the result of the report. So first thing, what the prompt will look like, and what we believe is important here too. And what I added to some of the slides on the PowerPoint is a direct link to the actual job aid for this report, so you can access it directly from this slide. And also what I believe to be key aspects of the job aid to help you understand what data you're entering in the prompt and what that data means when you're reading it. Okay, so basically things like fixed filters, so a set of filters that are always applied but may not be visible to you in page 4 of the job aid. We're going to take a look at that quickly. And also what is out of scope, okay? So only P&E equipment is included in this report, and that's on page 14 of the actual job aid. So I'm going to pull the job aid at the same time as I'm speaking and go back and forth from one to the other. Okay, and just go to our first job aid here, which is number 1. Now again, I recommend you do this as well as you're surfing through the reports and adding data and playing around with them to understand mainly what we see. So let me make this quite bigger here. Okay, basically we have these job aids are very well written and really do provide a lot of information in terms of how to understand these reports. So again, one of the first things was to understand, I'm looking at page 4, the fixed filters. So we will move directly to page 4 as everything else has been covered by me in that first slide. Okay, so basically the fixed filters. So see here, this is quite important, I believe it is. Although not visible as a prompt, the report will automatically retrieve fixed assets, equipment types, since only fixed assets are relevant to this report. Okay, so similarly, the following filters are always applied, even though you may not see them there. Exclude stock currently blocked, yes. Exclude equipment with system status out of scope, yes. Exclude equipment with user status out of scope, yes. So it's very important that you take a look at this job aid while you're surfing through the report and understand things like these. Okay, what is excluded automatically in your report and what is included just before you even start filling in the actual prompt and looking at the results and maybe not understanding what you're getting. Okay, and second of all was the out of scope, so page 14. These are things that I believe are just critical to show before we probably take a look at the report or maybe even look at a scenario in the report. So I can go down directly to page 14, but I recommend you take a look at the whole thing. Okay, very important, I believe, is also the scope determination in this job aid, which is the conditions, right, and calculations that apply the logic selected. Basically, what is out of scope and also what is in scope, right, depending on the period that we apply to the prompt. Very important, take always a look in every job aid to what equipment is out of scope if it's not clear initially, and always reference the information added here to that one in the job aid for the equipment, and I'll go back to that one in a second. For example, if I'm reading system status out of scope X, that may not mean much to me just by reading that, but if I look here, please see equipment out of scope field in the document Umoja BI job aid analysis workspace equipment. And now it's just going to take me a couple of seconds to do this, but for example, what I mean with this is what I would do and what I was doing when I was reviewing these reports is basically just taking a look at what equipment is out of scope, copying and pasting equipment out of scope, going back to this job aid here, the first one, analysis workspace equipment, which is the one that contains probably all the definitions and all these concepts that may not be very easily understandable, or who knows, maybe you just need some clarification, and take a look at that in the report when you're taking a look at this here, and to go directly to this job aid and see what that stands for, right? So we have here equipment out of scope X. If equipment should be considered out of scope for most reports as a result of its system status code, and these are usually the equipments that are out of scope, those with a deletion indicator, deletion flagged, assigned in delivery note, and so on. So it's very useful to go back and forth between the job aid of the report you're looking at. So in this case, I'm looking at the first one, and this is for the Web Intelligence report, taking a look at what is out of scope, what is in scope, what to add to my prompt, and so on. And if there's something I don't understand, like a concept like this one, just copy and paste it, go to the job aid for analysis workspace equipment, and find what you need in terms of concepts if it's not clear enough. All right, so basically just wanted to go over that quickly. I hear someone there, I believe. Does anybody want to speak up? Okay, I don't think so. So basically, you'll find this information throughout the slides as I'm going through it, the link to the job aid, and 2 or 3 things that I consider to be quite important. So we're already familiar with the prompt and the data that we have to add. Nothing new here. Again, business area and reporting entity. Always make sure if you have any optional fields of information you would like to add. And let's move on to our next screen, where we're going to be showing what the report looks like, what the Web Intelligence report looks like once we execute it. It has 3 tabs, so these are the main 3 tabs, the ones we're looking at on screen here. Physical accountability summary. The next is physical accountability activity for period, and last one, fixed assets in transit. Okay, so basically, since I'm using the pre-production version, there may not be, or there will not be, any data in the fixed asset in transit, but in production, I'm sure you guys will be able to find some data on there. Okay, let me just go back here, and let's see what we can find under the Summary tab. Okay, so basically your report under this tab for summary will look like what we're seeing on screen now. So basically some rows and columns indicating the percentage on accountability, so you can see number of all equipment and the capitalized value of that equipment. So remember, this is P&E. So this information will be very interesting to us when looking at what was inspected out of period, what was never inspected, the number of equipment that was never inspected, the percentage of it, and also understand its capitalized value. And at the bottom line, you also see that it is total in terms of percentages, equipment total, and also capitalized value. The same thing to the right of that, and just with a little more detail, we have the inspected in period specific quantity, the same thing for the one that is not located, inspected out of period, and never inspected quantity. So basically, it's a sort of a breakdown of what we see on the left side. And the information provided is the same, as we can see the three different columns here in this report. Okay, so I think this one speaks for itself. Again, what's important here, I also added the link to the job aid, and I indicate that it's the summary part, page 11. So basically, just as I was showing, I would go back, if I were you, to the job aid and look for page 11 and try to understand, or get a better understanding, maybe if it's not clear, of what the summary tab is showing us. Okay, so I believe it should be here. Physical accountability for period. Okay, so it's the one above, and here we go. Okay, this is what I mean when I'm adding that in my PowerPoint presentation. So if you want to understand it in terms of what the job aid tells you of what that tab shows you, it's this one here. So this tab, the report summarizes number, value, and percentage of fixed assets that are in scope for physical verification. And they're divided into three categories I was going through. So basically, again, I recommend take a look at these job aids and do as I'm doing now. Every time you look at some piece of data, reference it with the job aids, as they have very, very useful information. So let's move on to the next tab. Okay, and actually before I do that, one section I wanted to pay particular attention to is the one you guys are seeing now on screen, which is the one with the yellow circle here that I'm going over. And to understand that, also in the summary tab, below the two boxes with rows here in columns, as for the number of all equipment inspected in period not located and out of period, you'll also see another box with identify as potential loss, and the number of equipments there and the value of this equipment. Okay, so the concepts of not located are all one. Okay, what that means is that when we see here at the top the inspected in period and reported as not located are considered as one. So they could be not located and inspected and be considered the same amount. But now when we talk about things like potential loss, the concept of potential loss was reported as potential loss. Okay, so we know that this equipment was lost. Well, the other equipment, the one that's not located, is simply not located. So eventually, with time, we may find it, we may understand what has happened to it, but so far, we have not really reported it as either lost or broken or so on. Okay, so that's just an important observation I wanted to make with that small box here to the bottom left. Okay, and now we go on to the next tab for physical accountability for activity period. And we see as well the same information. So again, for page 11 and the link, the information of what this tab covers. But we can take a look at the columns and rows here and understand that again, this is showing us the equipment expected in period, the value of that equipment inspected in period, the percentage of it, the one out of period, and so on. So it kind of repeats the same information for different types of equipment, either inspected out of period, in period, never inspected, as we can see here, and so on. And then at the bottom, what we're actually looking at. So the business area and the reporting entity. So in this case, we're looking at reporting area Unifill and business area Unifill as well. The total number of equipment. In the sense, the capitalized value here sometimes does not load. In this case, in this screenshot, it's not there, but you can see it in the summary tab. And also the percentage of inspected in period and so on. So I could go back to the job aid, but I think it's quite clear now. Every time I add this to the slide, I would recommend just going back to the job aid and seeking that page. Okay, if at any time there's a question in the chat or somebody has a question or maybe a clarification from Kirill, Cass, or anyone else, Daniel, let me know and I'll just shut up for a minute. Okay, if not, I'm just going to move on.
No problem.
All right, and the same case for the fixed assets in transit. So again, viewing the job aid, page 13 would be what I recommend to take a read at to understand the data that we're looking at here. All right, and that would cover basically what we're looking at in terms of the Web Intelligence Report 1, okay, physical accountability of P&E. I believe it was quite simple, and just by pulling the report, you will understand it clearly. I think now we can move on to probably report 3, and I'm moving on to this one quickly because I think report 1 is very clear, especially the Web Intelligence Report. We can probably go into pre-production later with some easy scenarios to find out how we could make these useful for our own entity. But report 3 is somehow linked or connected to report 1, especially when you're looking at the analysis workspace. Okay, so report 3, just like report 1, has its own Web Intelligence Report, but shares, we can say shares, the analysis workspace with the report 1. So what does report 3 tell us? So the key action, effective verification of non-capitalized equipment. The business need for this one is to ensure quality and accuracy of property records for improved management decisions and stewardship. This report measures what? So percentage of non-capitalized equipment with serialization profile UN01, which arrived in the entity before commencement of reporting cycle and have been physically verified during the reporting cycle. Okay, these measurements are expressed as percentage of non-capitalized equipment, again, UN01, physically verified. And the intention of this report is to support the reporting of the quantity and value of equipment not linked to fixed assets, distinguishing the moment on which their latest physical verification took place. Okay, so this report will give you everything that report 1 was not, right? Report 1 was focused on the assets, and this one is, of course, everything, quantity and value of equipment not linked to fixed assets. All right, or the KPI for this report is set at 100%, just like for report 1, and tolerance rate at 2%, while the other one was 0.5%. Okay, and let's take a look at what this looks like in terms of prompt and also the report. Okay, well, I do have a scenario here, so I'm going to skip that one first. We'll get to that one later. I'll save that one for last. Okay, again, so we have our 2 tabs. In the one we saw before, report 1, we had 3 tabs. In this case, we have 2. And what this looks like below, so again, very similar to what we were looking at in report 1, but of course now we're looking at something completely different. Okay, so not related. Remember, equipment not related to fixed assets is what we're looking at now in report 3. 100% accountability and so on, percentage of KPI accountability, number of all equipment, acquisition value, just like we saw in report 1 for that was inspected out of period and that for inspected, never inspected, sorry. And again, a better breakdown to the right of what we're looking at on the left side, which is the inspected in period, not located out of period, and never inspected, and the breakdown here. So whatever we saw for report 1, this is basically the same thing, but again, remember, for equipment not related to fixed assets. That would be our first tab, the one for summary. And what to focus on here. Again, I also recommend the same thing. The links are here for this job aid, and I recommend taking a look at what are the fixed filters on page 5, summary and measures on page 11. Okay, so I'll go back to that, to the job aids for other reports that I consider really need you to dig in and understand what you're looking at, but I think these are quite simple and speak for themselves. Okay, our next tab now is physical accountability activity for a period, and also looks very similar to what we saw before. for report 1 and breaks down into different columns all the equipment, expected in period, percentage inspected in period, then again out of period, percentage of inspected out of period, never inspected. So again, we have a breakdown in a single, let's say, line of what we were looking at in the tab for summary, but now we have it all in one single line. And what's quite important here is to understand what we're looking at as well, which is the business area and reporting entity. In this case, it's the same one. And again, the total number of equipment, inspected percentage in period of equipment not located, inspected out of period and never inspected, and these will help us understand if we're meeting our KPIs or not for this report in our entity specifically. All right, so I will move on and now take a look at probably what the analysis workspace looks like. Again, importantly, activity for period and measures, page 11 for this job aid, very useful. And let's take a quick look at the analysis workspace and maybe then go back to that scenario slide that I was showing before, so we can probably play around with these reports a bit and see what they look like in pre-production. All right, so first thing is our prompt. We're very familiar with this already. Again, remember, you always have hidden optional prompts to add details to. In this case, what I believe is important to focus on is also what we're selecting in terms of equipment type. So remember, report 1 was for assets, and I'm speaking very generally, and 3 is not related, equipment not related to assets. So of course, when we combine both of them in an analysis workspace, what you have now is an option to select what you want to look at. The assets, both, or just those pieces of equipment not related to assets. Okay, so basically that will allow us to eventually have, again, a report 1 or a report 3 with more details, because remember, as Daniel was showing you, when you drag and drop different objects in the analysis workspace, you may get a lot more information that is not directly in a web intelligence report, as that one focuses mainly on you having a quick look at if you're meeting your KPIs. Okay, so again, very importantly, these prompts and the details in these prompts that I consider important, and then default value of yes, okay, can be changed individually to no. And what does that mean when we're looking at page 7 for this job aid? Okay, and this one we're going to take a quick look at. So I'm going to go to page 7 for the job aid of the analysis workspace of report 1 and 3. Okay, so again, you guys should probably all be looking at these job aids. So again, this is 1 and 3. I think it's never too much to ask to always take a look at these job aids, as they'll be very important. Let me zoom in once this opens up and go to the page I was indicating before, which is page 7, and see what that means when I see the default value of yes. Okay, so I'm just going to drag here and go down to page 7. Okay, and see what that means here. Okay, so the following prompts, and again, we're looking at the prompt that we were looking at here. Okay, and that would be, of course, and this is something that's very important. As you can see, if you take a look at this prompt here, we have the ones that are required, but then we have a bunch of others that have yes. Of course, in the screenshot, I cannot do it, but the optional ones that I was showing on the slide, which are here, you see, remember that we have the hidden optional prompts 10. If we look at the job aid, these optional prompts, okay, a little too far there. Make this small, go back. Okay, I think the entire job aid just disappeared on me, so just give me 2 seconds, I'll pull it up again. Okay, so those optional fields will allow you to understand what this default status of yes is. Okay, so we'll go back to page 7, and here we go, we're back there. And let me click on my red marker here. Okay, so it seems that every time I go, there you go, page 7. I don't know why this is jumping down to the bottom. Sorry, guys. Just things of being live on television here. Okay, so again, the ones that are defaulted to yes show up here. Let's understand what that means. So the following prompts have been default value of yes, which restrict the rows shown in the report. They may be changed individually to no, okay? So very important, even though they're optional, you guys can always just click on those and change those defaulted values from yes to no and maybe get some different data, okay? And what is defaulted to yes? Well, exactly these objects here. So exclude stock currently blocked, yes, you can switch that to no. Same thing with status out of scope, user status out of scope, equipment in transit, and so on. Now I know equipment in transit, blocked, acquired in period may be easy to understand, but maybe when you look at user status out of scope, you have no idea what that means. So again, remember, copy that, go back to the job aid for the equipment, and I would recommend, okay, remember, as I was showing at the beginning, go back to the analysis workspace equipment and add that information and search for that information here. Okay, so in a sense, just add whatever it is that you're looking for in this one, and it'll take you directly to that, what we're looking at in that report. Okay, so in this case, it's out of scope. And hold on, let me get that box out of the way. And here, user status out of scope. Do the same exact thing. Now, it may seem simple, but for those of you who are not that familiar with some of these concepts, okay, I would recommend you do this, okay, and find out the information. Yes? Okay. So, Daniel, no questions so far?
Yes, well, there are a couple of them, but we did. Yeah, let me just mute all.
Sure.
Yeah, I think it's. But we are answering the questions through the chat. No major issues related to the specific reports. So over here.
Okay. Perfect. All right. Okay, so basically that's just to understand the prompt for the analysis workspace of report 1/3. And what it looks like once we have already added our information, okay? So we have populated our prompt and executed this report, and we see basically this is what the report looks like initially without playing around with the rows or columns, okay? So this is by default what the report looks like and what it tells you. So first thing is what business area we're looking at, and also what reporting entity we're looking at. So in this case, Unifil, both Unifil, and the measures that are automatically defaulted with this analysis workspace, which is number of pieces of equipment, equipment acquisition value, number of pieces of equipment with 100% accountability. So very similar to what we saw in the Web Intelligence report, number of pieces of equipment outside of period, never inspected, and so on. Okay, so again, you have a basic defaulted view of what will help you answer the question, do I meet my KPIs, yes or no? Again, very important, if you're looking at the reporting entity in all business areas linked to it, only the business area that reflects the equipment that is owned by you, and so on, as we explained the first day. Now, we'll only go over that if you guys need a refresher on that. If not, I'm just going to move on. And if you need more details, like maybe the user status, the system status, the cost center, the storage location for these equipments, the last time the status was changed with these equipments, you can always just drag and drop the data, the objects that are all the way on the left, so it would mean in the report on this side, where Daniel has shown that to you, and get the report according to your needs. All right, so basically I think that would cover the details that I wanted to cover for these reports 1 and 3, Web Intelligence and Analysis Workspace. Again, also some recommendations in terms of what to look at in the job aid and the page that you should focus on to understand what some of this data means. And maybe I think it could be time to go back to that scenario that I was showing before. So sorry guys, I guess I put the slide earlier than I thought, but it should be right here. So I'm just going to go back to those 2 scenarios. Okay, so one of these scenarios here, and now what's important about these scenarios is that this is what the exercises, and I know that maybe we have forgotten about the exercises already. But remember, we said in the kickoff VTC that we're going to be sending you guys some exercises that we expect you return. As we can't cover every single report, and I'm talking about in a demo sense, right? We can't dig into all these reports. We want you guys to do some homework. So in a sense, the homework is going to look like this, right? So you'll have a scenario like this one, for example. The PMU in your mission is reporting on the quantity and value of equipment not linked to fixed assets that have been physically verified. The dates of the report range from 2018 January to 2018 February, and a set of questions. Okay, some very basic questions, I believe, for people that are just getting into these reports. Once you are an expert with these reports, these will be, you'll consider these to be very basic questions. But I think these at least will cover the business needs and the KPIs and what the report measures and knowing if you meet your KPIs as an entity. So basically, if we read this scenario and we take a look at the questions, what we should be able to guess, or let's say confidently, is what report I would select to answer to these questions. Okay, because if we don't understand what report we're selecting based on the 2 reports that we've seen, or 3 if we count the AWS, which one would we select? Would it be report 1? Would it be report 3? Would it be the analysis workspace to answer the questions for this scenario? Now, I'm not sure, this is not really a polling question, but if Daniel, anybody is writing in the chat what report they would select, let me know, and we'll see if they've been paying attention. And I'm going to just leave a couple of seconds and maybe say it myself. Okay, so take a look at this scenario and understand this. PMU of your mission is reporting on quantity and value of equipment not linked to fixed assets that have been physically verified. All right, I'm actually seeing people writing already report 3, correct? The dates in the report. Okay, so exactly, right? We would go back to our report 3, because if we look at the first slide on report 3, and I think I have it here, yes, we realize that that's exactly that, right? Records improved. So percentage of non-capitalized equipment with realization profile, which arrived in the entity, and then the intention, right? Support reporting, quantity and value of equipment not linked to fixed assets. Okay, so basically our best option here would be to select report 3. And that would answer our first question. And is the mission meeting expected KPIs? Okay, then I would recommend now going into the system and probably taking a quick look at the report. So Daniel, while I go through logging in once again, if there's any questions, let me know. Maybe now would be a time to address them.
Yeah, so first of all, most of the attendees catched the report number 3 as the answer to your question. And then we have the questions, specific questions on the write-off notifications as well. As a general, let's say, like a golden rule for BI in general, once you launch a web intelligence report, the data that you're going to see are more related to high-level data and with a little possibility to drill down, whereas then AWS report will give you the granularity of that high-level data. So if you do not see the specific equipment that has to be written off with a low level of utilization in the web intelligence report, don't worry, at least you can identify the reporting entity in the business area. And from there, you use the AWS in order to drag and drop the equipment number or the notification number, if it is the write-off, for example. And so it's, at the end of the day, it's a matter of using Webby and analysis workspaces at the same time, because both reports, each one of those reports are intended to give answer to different scenarios and context. Over to you.
All right, thanks, Daniel. So I have opened the report here. Let me just drag and drop the actual, there you go. So now I'm sharing on my screen the actual prompt for report 3. So yes, that would be the correct report to look at, right? To report on the quantity and value of equipment not linked to fixed assets. So very basic questions. Is the mission meeting expected KPIs? Okay, so basically this is the defaulted data that appears on the screen, and now I would just have to change the dates. So if I'm not mistaken, I wrote 1801 in the first one, then I wrote very simple, just to go through this quickly. Now I know for some of you guys it may be too simple, but at least we're getting through this and we get a chance to take a look at some of these reports. Again, I shared a link earlier in the chat where you guys can view these recordings we were talking about, and that will help you a lot in terms of letting you know the possibilities of BI in terms of generating graphs, comparing reports, playing around with the objects, and so on. Okay, I recommend you watch those videos. Now, here I'm just scrolling up and down through the results that the business area has given me. In a sense, let's say I can always just write here MONUSCO if I wanted to search for MONUSCO, just because that's what the one I was playing around with before. Okay, and remember, remove the data of anything else that was there before. So I just removed the one that was there by default, added MONUSCO. Now I know it's there. In a sense, I want to add probably MONUSCO as a reporting entity as well. And maybe I wanted to do even more than that. Maybe I want to add all the business areas linked to reporting entity MONUSCO in order to answer these questions, right? I want to know if I'm meeting my KPI. So maybe I want to add all of them and then pull the report. For the sake of time, I'm not going to do that. But again, the best way would be to just select all the business areas. That's if you don't know the business areas that are linked to the reporting entity. And then, of course, only the ones linked to the reporting entity MONUSCO would show up. In this case, the way I've done it, only MONUSCO is going to show up for reporting entity MONUSCO. Okay, the minimum acquisition value is 0 and its default is 0. You can also change that if, let's say, you want the results to show you the equipment linked to assets that is over, that has different amounts, sorry, so that your results will change. So that's always up to you. This is just a default. And we already have enough data to execute our report, and that's what we can do, right? So these reports can take a while. Some of them can go faster. I believe in production they're quite fast. But basically what I get in this screen and what's going to load now in the screen should allow me to answer the questions that we were looking at before, which are right on the screen here. So when you have your exercise, and you're answering to your exercise, which is going to be very similar to this, probably with a bit more questions, it's exactly what we want you to do. We want you to go into the report that you believe is the accurate one. We're not going to be telling you which one it is, at least not in all the cases. So you have to figure out what report is the correct one, pull the information from your entity, fill in the prompt accurately according to what we're asking, and maybe just send us back a screenshot of the result. Okay, some of these exercises will be as simple as this one, and others may require other things. So you're basically doing what we're doing on screen now. In this sense, this one is still loading, and once it loads completely, we should have the data that will allow us to answer the second question, if we're meeting the expected KPIs. And then, what is the percentage of non-capitalized equipment with serialization profile UN01 which arrived in the entity before commencement of reporting cycle and have been physically verified? So very two easy and simple questions. All right. And again, see I think he didn't realize he was unmuted. All right. So here we go. That's perfect timing. I was running out of things to say. All right, and here we go. Let's just make this a bit bigger. And let's see what numbers we have here. Okay, so I just pulled that information. Now, again, I'm only using MONUSCO as a business area. I'm still in the summary tab, and I'm taking a look at this data. Now, again, remember, I'm in pre-production, okay? And I'm only looking from 2018 January to February. All right, so basically with the information that we have in this screen, we should be able to identify if we're meeting the KPIs or not, and also answer the second question. Remember, you have another tab here on the side that will also allow you to view information specifically for the equipment, for that is inspected out of period and in period, okay? And at the bottom, a nice square that tells us the business area, reporting entity, and here we go, all the equipment, the percentage inspected in period, the percentage not located, inspected out of period, and never inspected. So based on this data, could we answer the questions provided here? Is the mission meeting expected KPIs? Now, if you guys know the answer to that, could you just write in the chat, yes, we can, or maybe even the percentage of the KPI that we're meeting? Because if we're not able to do that, looking at these reports and looking at these screens, or answering this question, then there's something we have to start doing during this WebEx session or doing differently. So if you guys could just write in the chat, is this entity meeting its KPIs, yes or no? And then even the second question, which is this one here. I'm going to put the questions back on the screen. Is the mission meeting the expected KPIs? What is the percentage of non-capitalized value? Okay, with realization profile, which arrived in the entity before commencement. Okay, percentage of non-capitalized equipment. Okay, and back to the screen. And we have some no's, we have yeses. Okay, and that would be an interesting conversation, right, to understand if we're meeting the KPIs. Of course, again, if you remember that I'm just choosing 2 months, and I'm also choosing just one business area for that reporting entity. So this would not be exactly how you do the exercise, but this took long enough to just for before. So Daniel, do we have answers in the chat? Do we have yeses or nos?
Yes, we have more no's than yeses because they say that 23% is below target. But there are a couple of comments that I'd like to address to Cass because they're related to SOPs, meaning that they are not sure whether the KPI is met because they say that it's based on the mission SOP. I do believe that the New York has a KPI and a threshold for a reason, so it might not depend on the mission itself, but on the general policy that you guys are designing. Over to you.
I defer to Kirill.
Okay.
Yes, no, I mean, yes, it's a tricky question to answer whether the mission meets the KPI in this particular, because for obvious reasons in regression we don't have complete year to run it. But as this is for a period of 2 months, one can say that the portion of physical verifications conducted within 2 months indicate that the mission is on target with achieving the performance targets by the end of the reporting period. And again, it's good observation that the target for each month would depend on the mission's plan for physical verification, and sometimes some months may be more, other months may be less, but important is to achieve the 100% target by the end of the financial year. Over.
Yeah, thank you, Kirill. I think that actually, depending on the time range that we are putting in the prompt, that will really give us the answer in terms of the full KPI. If we put a smaller range of time, then we may have a hint of whether we are in track or not. That's I think that we're, with this observation, I'm trying to just scope the different comments related to the SOP rather than KPI. Over to you, Brian.
All right, thank you, Daniel, thank you, Kirill, thank you, Cass. I think that was a great answer, and I think very useful. I believe that by getting the answers from the students, we realize that they are understanding how to interpret this data, and also what report to use, and what's really the whole aim of this WebEx session, right? Which is to understand what we're supposed to measure and understand if we're achieving it or not, and what report to select. So thank you guys for also participating, for the attendees. And basically, I know it's already the time of the WebEx, so maybe we can't go through the next question that I had here. Hold on, let me see if I can get it on screen. So the other scenario is something we can always take a look at tomorrow, or this is really just, I leave it to you guys to take a look, but basically this is what's important, and this is what our exercises are going to look like. So take a look, and now the same thing as the one before, right? You have to decide what report to select, understand if they're meeting the expected KPIs. Again, I'm always just using a month or two interval, just because we're not really looking to judge missions right now. We're just looking to understand the data in the report and answer the questions. All right, guys. So, I mean, based on the time that it is, and I know people have things to do, and Cass and Kirill maybe have meetings and so on. If we want to make a closing observation, we were able to cover at least 3 of the reports for physical verification. Tomorrow we'll continue with this one, and we'll continue to be on track with what was expected.
Thank you very much. Nothing from on our side.
All right, thank you guys, and thank you for being there throughout the whole WebEx. Very useful interventions. Daniel, anything to add?
Yes, we still have some people answering your previous question on which report to use. So yes, the attendance rate is quite high in any case. Thank you, Brian, for that. I would assume that you will resume the session on physical verification tomorrow at 2 o'clock. And
Absolutely.
nothing from my end. We are trying to copy and paste the whole chat. We will edit the chat before we send it out as well. And after this session, we will render the video, the recording, and then it will be available for you tomorrow, first thing in the morning, in our YouTube page. Over to you, Brian.
All right. Thank you, guys, once again. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon. In New York, enjoy the rest of your day. And we'll see you guys tomorrow and continue with the reports on physical verification.